السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We're talking about the level of التذكر, to be reminded, and what Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah mentioned in this level of منزلة من منازل العبودية. One of the levels of al-ubudiyya, servitude, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by establishing the different acts of ibadah to be obedient to Allah, and one of which is many people, they overlook this, is to be reminded, is to be someone that affected by the reminders, whether it's something physical that Allah created, or the actions of people, what happens on the face of earth. And the other thing is with the wahy from Allah, to be affected by the revelation from Allah, and being affected in a good way, that a person would repent to Allah, that a person would fulfill the commands of Allah, as a result of the benefit from the reminders. So this subject is such an important one, and looking into the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, it gives us some of the understandings of how to benefit from it, and it's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So continuing from where we left off last time, in which he said rahimahullah that al-ibra, or the benefit of the reminders, and al-ibra, it comes from the word abara, when you cross to something else, like you're crossing from one piece of land to another piece of land through a bridge, for example. So al-ibra is crossing from just seeing or hearing something to another level, where a person would really understand what's that action, or what's that thing that he's upon means, or what is it for. Like, and you gave the example of how the human beings, they see things versus what animals see the same thing. Both animals and human beings might see the same thing, but the human beings, they see it, and they see the end of it, and how this would affect their life, and they have aql, they have the ability to put reason together. So how can the reminders be given us the proper vision, or to see the proper understanding of it? So once a person sees and knows, then the actions will become accordingly. So he says, rahimahullah, it's to establish this, to be able to see the benefit, and to see what it refers to, and what it's leading us to, is by three things. The first thing is, he says, hayatul aql, the life of one's reason, the life of one's intellect. And we have to pay attention to what Ibn al-Qayyim says, because he's very precise in this, and we'll talk about that. The second one is ma'rifatul ayyam, to have the knowledge or the information of the reality of the days, and we'll talk about that, the days that we witness. And the third one, as-salamatu min al-aghrad, and to be safe from al-aghrad. Al-aghrad, we'll talk about that. It can mean more than one thing. Basically, to be safe from what can hit the person, or what can affect the person. But when we look into it, he says that al-ibra, or the reminder, or the benefit of it, is to be established when the intellect, when one's reason is alive, right? So as the reality of it, as I said, al-ubur, to cross from the ruling of something to the ruling of the like of it. Like, for example, if you see someone that is afflicted by a trial or difficulty in this life because of something that he committed. So someone, whether it's he received a punishment in this life by the authority because he committed a crime, or someone did something and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala afflicted him with a certain calamity. So you would see that example, and you would take that from that a lesson, that you would act upon what you learn. Whether it's something physical, whether it's something religious, people take lessons from others. Someone used to eats so much when he's young and he doesn't care what he eats, and then he suffered from that when he get older a little bit. So you take a lesson from that. So you would draw a conclusion that whoever take the same means, he might or most likely to follow or to fall into the same rulings. So hayatul aql, the life of one's reason and intellect, is when a person have the ability to understand what people go through, and then to have a conclusion and to have the proper understanding and to benefit and to know how things can benefit and how things can harm. And really the essence of it is a light that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose whoever he wills from his creation, that he puts in their hearts. And according to how people with that strength of that light, whether it's strong or weak, whether it's present or it doesn't even exist, then the people will have the different understanding, the different understanding the reality of things and having exalting or not. And this is basically exactly as the light when it's needed to the eyesight for a person to see clearly. This is how this ability for a person to see through reason the benefit or the harms of things. He mentioned something, that the two names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum, that how that is, it brings the life to one's heart and one's reason and intellect. And he refers to Sheikh al-Islam Taymiyyah rahimahullah, that he's known to always say or use the name Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. That's from the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and that it has a great effect into the heart and to the life of the heart. And one of the things that they kind of people try to explain why Sheikh al-Islam Taymiyyah rahimahullah would say such a statement, is that bid'ah to do this or not? Because he used to say that whoever is consistent in saying between Sunnatul Fajr and Salatul Fajr, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, La ilaha illa ant, wa rahmatika astaghith, if a person says this 40 times between Sunnatul Fajr and between Salatul Fajr for 40 days, the life of the heart will be established. The life of the heart will be established in his heart. And is that something that is reported from the Prophet ﷺ? There's no report of such a thing from the Prophet ﷺ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But as far as of saying, using the names and attributes of Allah and making dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's at all times. And that's what a person should try to make the dhikr that the Prophet ﷺ used to do. But anyway, so the effect of these two names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the hearts, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, regardless of what authenticity of that matter is mentioned, inshallah. But basically it refers to something important, which is the relationship between the names and attributes of Allah and the commands of Allah and the life itself. Like how to live our life with the names and attributes of Allah. And part of that is to use it in our dua. And we have in the adhkar in the morning, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum برحمتك أستغيث أصلح لي شأني كله ولا تكلني إلى نفسي طرفة عين. That's to be done every day. So this is the first thing basically, and that is to have the life of one's reason with the dhikr of Allah. The dhikr of Allah gives this life of one's reason. And of course, when reading the Quran, it gives us the proper understanding of the end of things and so on. The second thing is regarding to the days. What is knowing the days means? It's basically referring to one's life. It gives you more wisdom and ability to understand reminders and admonitions is to look at one's life and to know how short that is, and that our life is basically counted breath that we take, and then after that it's compared to everlasting years afterwards. So there's no comparison there. So why would a person choose this temporary life that is very limited versus the everlasting life? And the time does not stop, and it's a journey that everybody's going through it, and it's going, and a person has to be wise. So to have reminders that we need to be attached to the everlasting life. So it's like someone for a short period of time, for those who have reason, and whatever is left in one's life, a person should make a decision and be upon that he wants to live his life into what's more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if he does this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him the best in the hereafter. So al-ayyam is mentioned in the Quran, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا مُوسَى بِآيَاتِنَا أَنْ أَخْرِجْ قَوْمَكَ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ وَذَكِّرْهُمْ بِأَيَّامِ اللَّهِ. That we send Musa alayhi salam with the signs of Allah to take his people from the darknesses to the light and to remind them of the ayyam of Allah. What is ayyamullah? The tafsir of it is that the ayyam of Allah is the favors of Allah. It's the wrath of Allah upon the disbelievers and the sinners. So it's basically, that's what the ayyam is. And to see Allah, to see the punishments of Allah, to see how things are, and to see in one's life, and how to take benefit from one's life. So to basically not to be heedless, as some people, they just live their life. Every day is like the day before, and they just eat and drink, and they continue, they go on with their life. Rather to be aware of things. And the third one is to be safe from al-aghrad. And al-aghrad is basically the things that would affect one's, what's mentioned before, which is to follow the desire, to follow the nafs, one's being, because that takes away the light of the intellect, makes the person's proper vision, he becomes blind, and makes the person away from the haqq. When a person follows his desire for the sake of the desire and not the haqq. So to protect oneself from that, to benefit from al-ibrah. So to have the life of this heart, the life of one's intellect, and how to do that with the dhikr of Allah and the Quran. And the second thing, which is to have the reality of the life that we're in and the benefits that a person would get as a result of that, and to be protected from one's desires. But then al-fikra, or the proper thoughtful things and reflecting upon things, is to attain that also by three things. And the three things would lead to other things. So you have qisar al-amal, the short hope in this life, to reflect upon the Quran, to have less mixing, which basically the mixing with people that would affect the person in a negative way. Also with regards to at-tamanni, to have the wishful thinking that is not true, to be attached to other than Allah, to be always full when it comes to food, and also the subject of sleeping. What all these things are, if a person wants to benefit from the pondering and reflecting and also admonitions and so on, you can categorize them into three things, and then the third one has 5 things. And we'll be brief, inshallah, but this is important, and I would, if you can write down these things, inshallah, it can be benefiting. The first one is qisar al-amal, right? Which we just talked about that also. Qisar, that means al-amal is hope, to have short hopes, and meaning that, when people plan for what they're going to do next year, next month, and after 10 years and so on, to always remember that we can leave this life anytime. The second one is to reflect upon the Quran. And the third one is to avoid the 5 destructions of the heart, the things that destroys the heart. the 5 things that corrupts the heart. So the first one is قصر الأمل. قصر الأمل is the knowledge that you will depart soon from this life. And this is one of the most benefiting matters to the heart, because it makes the heart take advantage of every minute in our life, and to take advantage of the opportunities that comes and it passes quickly like the clouds, and to make sure that the book of deeds is full of what is good and to purify it from what is evil. And it makes the person always repenting to Allah, having the zuhd of this dunya, and having the zeal of the hereafter. So it gives the person the yaqeen, the certainty, and he lives in this life with the heart attached to the hereafter. So someone is traveling and he is collecting money or he's doing something, and his heart is attached to his home and his family, and when he's going to go back and see them and be with them. And the ayah in Surah Ash-Shu'ara that should always have a place in our hearts. أفرأيت إن متعناهم سنين ثم جاءهم ما كانوا يوعدون ما أغنى عنهم ما كانوا يمتعون. Say that if we give them enjoyment for years, which is this life, then came to them what they have been promised, it did not avail them what they used to enjoy. ويوم يحشرهم كأن لم يلبثوا إلا ساعة من النهار يتعارفون بينهم. On the day when we will gather them in the day of judgment, as if they only stayed for 1 hour during the day, they get to know one another. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كأنهم يوم يرونها لم يلبثوا إلا عشية أو ضحى. When they see the day of judgment, as if they only stayed a part of the day or part of the night. And the verses keeps on going like that in the Quran. And then that's the words of Allah. قالوا لبثنا يوما أو بعض يوم فاسأل العادين قال إن لبثتم إلا قليلا. You only stayed for very few amount of time. If you would but know. كأنهم يوم يرون ما يوعدون لم يلبثوا إلا ساعة من نهار. As if when they see what they have been promised, as if they did not stay except for 1 hour of the day. بلاغ, conveyance. This is what needs to be conveyed. فهل يهلك إلا القوم الفاسقون. And so on. The Prophet ﷺ gave khutbah and addressed his companions one day, and the sun was right by the heads of the mountains, and it's close to sunset. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إنه لم يبقى من الدنيا فيما مضى منها إلا كما بقي من يومكم هذا فيما مضى منه. That what's left from this dunya compared to what has been passed from it, it's like what passed from your day compared to what's left from it. And the Prophet ﷺ passed by some of his companions, and they were fixing خُصًّا لهم قدوها, fixing a hut or something like that for them that was needs to be fixed. So he said ما هذا. So that they said خُصٌّ لنا قدوها فنحن نعالجه. We're fixing it. فقال ما أرى الأمر إلا أعجل من هذا. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, I see that the matter is much haste and faster than that. And to focus more on that and how that life departs very quickly. And hereafter is an everlasting one, to make ithar of what's in the hereafter versus this life. The second thing is, which is at-ta'ammul fil Quran, to reflect upon the Quran and the meanings of the Quran. That's the objective of the Quran, why it was revealed, not to just to recite it without understanding. كتاب أنزلناه إليك مبارك ليدبروا آياته. This is a blessed book that we reveal to you so that they reflect upon its ayat. أفلا يتدبرون القرآن, shouldn't they reflect upon the Quran? أم على قلوب أقفالها, or there are locks on their hearts. Many verses that talks about that. وقال الحسن البصري said نزل القرآن ليتدبر ويعمل به فاتخذوا تلاوته عملا. The Quran was revealed for people to reflect and to act upon it. The Quran was revealed for people to reflect and to act upon it. فاتخذوا تلاوته عملا. So take the recitation of the Quran as actions. The recitation of the Quran, take it as an action. When you're reciting the Quran, take it as an action to understand what is meant by the recitation, to act upon it. So there's nothing more benefiting to the slave of Allah in his life and in the hereafter, and more closer for him to be saved from the reflecting upon the Quran and to reflect and to give the time to reflect upon it. Because it makes the person get to see the exact details of al-khayr wa shar, the good and the evil, with every single detail of it, not what people think, but according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His murad and His will, and the paths to both, and the objectives and the fruits and the end of all things, based on the khayr and the good and the evil, and gives the person the keys for the treasures of happiness and benefiting knowledge, and establish the foundations of al-iman in the heart, and it gives perfect the structure of al-iman in the heart, makes the person sees the reality of this life and the hereafter, the Jannah, the hellfire, all of that in the hearts of the person when he reflects upon the Quran. Make all the nations in this world become present in front of his eyes. He sees the ayam of Allah, the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in them, to get to know the benefits of how to benefit, as we just talked about that, and to witness the justice of Allah and the favor of Allah. It gets the person to see and to know the names and attributes of Allah and His actions and what He loves and what He hates, and the salat of Allah that makes the person reaches to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be close to Allah, and what people would receive after they reach their destination, and the things that would take them away, like the highway robbers, and when they steal people and they prevent them from reaching their destination. The Quran makes us get to know our own selves and our characteristics, and what ruins one's actions and what corrects it, and to make us know the path of the people of Jannah and the path of the people of the hellfire, and their actions and their state of everything, and the levels of the people of happiness and the level of people of being wretched, and all the different categories of human beings. All of them are explained in the Quran. So as the three things that he mentioned that basically the entire Quran is upon, is that it makes you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that everybody need to be called to Allah, and how to reach to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what the karama that and the honor that a person would receive if he reaches that. And the opposite of that is what the shaitan is calling people to, and the path that makes the person reach that destination, and what's going to happen to them from the punishment as a result of that. So these are 6 things that you see them clearly in the Quran. 3 with regards to what al-khayr is, and 3 with regards to what's evil. So to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how to attain the pleasure of Allah by basically fulfilling the commands of Allah, and so on, and what's the reward that a person would receive after he reaches destination, versus what the shaitan is calling people to, and the path that makes a person attain that or reach that, and what's the punishment that he would receive as a result of that. So then, when a person has this, person will be able to clearly differentiate between al-haq wal-batil, truth and the falsehood, in the things that people they have differences of opinions upon. Makes the person sees al-haq haq. And we said before, from the dua of the Prophet ﷺ, Allahumma arini al-haqqa haqqan. Allah, make me see the haqq as haqq, because the haqq is haqq. The truth is the truth, no matter what people do to it, no matter how much people they turn away from it, it's still al-haqq. But do people see it as falsehood? So to be able to be given the ability to see the haqq as haqq, and the batil as batil, and the falsehood as falsehood, this is one of the greatest favor that a person can attain in this life. To have the furqan, the criteria, to know what's right and what's wrong, and all of that is by the wahy from Allah. And that's what the meanings of the Quran, with matters of belief, with matters of actions, with everything, the ways of Allah. So, and all of the details of that, and whether it talks about the hereafter or this life, and the ahkam and the halal and the haram. So the Quran keeps our hearts like this, and protect us from the evil within oneself. And so all of that is there, and we can go on with this as he ends this part of the talk by saying that من تأمل القرآن وتدبره أو في تأمل القرآن وتدبره وتفهمه أضعاف ما ذكرنا. Reflecting upon the Quran and to understand it has many multiple folds of more than what we just mentioned, from the hikam, from the wisdom and the benefits. So this is أعظم الكنوز, the best of all treasures, right? And whoever deprive himself from it, he won't see the real treasures of this life. The next subject, which is the third part, which is مفسدات القلب, the five reason or five means of corrupting the hearts. But we'll talk about that inshallah ta'ala next time. طيب, we'll stop here inshallah because of the next class. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك محمد وصحبه وسلم.